a deeply strategic game played by chieftains bedecked in feathered cloaks. A game seemingly lost to history until revived by oral accounts from native elders. A game finding new life and paradise right now. The ancient Hawaiian game of Kōnane, this time on the gaming bench. To play, you'll first need a Kōnane board. Historically, there doesn't seem to be a set size, but they were always a grid of spaces, usually asymmetrical, like 8 by 9 or 13 by 20. But symmetrical boards also existed, as small as 6 by 6 up to, in at least one example, 50 by 50. It appears that most modern Kōnane boards are symmetrical. I made this board, and if you want to see how I did it, I have another video linked in the description that shows the entire process. This board is 8 by 8. You'll need 2 colors of pieces, enough to fill the board in alternating spaces. Traditionally, the spaces were pebbles or bits of rock, often pieces of black lava rock for the dark pieces and coral for the white pieces. I'm using glass marbles. Kōnane is a 2-player game. It begins with all the pieces on the board. Unlike European games, black goes first. So first, select a player who will move first. But before you start playing, you should know that Kōnane is a verb. So you wouldn't say, do you want to play Kōnane? You'd say, do you want to Kōnane? To start, black removes one of their own pieces from the center of the board or from one of the 4 corners. If you're playing with a symmetrical board like this one, there isn't a center space, so the first player chooses one from the 2 that surround the center of the board. The white player then removes one of their own pieces that is orthogonally adjacent, that is, in the same row or column, to the piece that black just removed. With these 2 opening pieces removed, gameplay begins. All moves must be captures. Captures are done by the short leap, jumping over your opponent's piece to an empty space beyond, just like in modern-day checkers or drafts. But unlike checkers, there are no diagonal moves in Kōnane. Multiple jumps are allowed, but aren't compulsory. A player can't change direction in the middle of a capturing move. Play continues like this until a player can't make a capture, that is, they can't make a legal move, and loses the game. This also means, unlike checkers and drafts, there will never be a draw. With its alternating colors and hopping captures, Kōnane looks a lot like checkers, but it's actually geographically, historically, and culturally a very different game. The exact age of the game of Kōnane is impossible to determine, but it is definitely a pre-contact game, meaning it was played on the islands well before Europeans first made contact. It's generally believed that Hawaii was settled by Polynesian explorers sometime between 940 and 1200 CE, so it's likely that the game is at least 1,000 years old. Ancient boards for Kōnane, called papamu, can be found carved into coastal lava rock and other stone surfaces across the islands. Portable boards were also crafted from wood, cloth, and people even played by just poking holes in the sand. It's important to understand that the papamu is a gaming surface, but it's not exclusively for Kōnane. It's believed that other games were played on the same board, but like so many ancient games, we have names for these other games, but no idea how they were played. There's also speculation that the gridded surface may have had astrological or mathematical significance as well. Taking this into consideration, perhaps it's not surprising that there appears to be no standardized board size. Most ancient papamu are asymmetrical grids, like 13 by 16. Interestingly, if there is no exact center space to start the game, a space close to the center is often designated as the center starting space, called the piko. Pieces for the game, called ili ili, have also been found in ancient sites. The black pieces, called ili ili eli eli, are traditionally basalt stones, and the white pieces, called ili ili kaho kaho, are bits of coral. British naval captain James Cook is considered the first white man to set foot on Hawaii, stumbling across the islands in 1778 while searching for the fabled Northwest Passage. Initial contact was friendly, but tensions soon arose between the Hawaiians and the English. A series of unlikely events that included burning of sacred idols, the theft of a ship, and the attempted kidnapping of a chieftain led to a confrontation that left 17 Hawaiians and 5 British soldiers dead, including Cook. A 4-volume account of Cook's travels was published in 1784, 4 years after his death. Volume 3 records the Englishman's first encounter with Kōnane. One of their games resembles our game of drafts, but from the number of squares, it seems to be much more intricate. The board is of a length of about 2 feet and is divided into 238 squares, 14 in a row. In this game, they use black and white pebbles, which they move from one square to another. And in good colonialist style, that passage is introduced with a note that Hawaiians are greatly addicted to gambling. But even as Cook and his crew were first observing the game, Hawaiian language records indicate that native Hawaiians already considered Kōnane an ancient game. Native Hawaiian historian Samuel Kamakaua wrote about Hawaiian culture and language in the 1800s. Regarding Kōnane, he describes the game as being played widely in all levels of traditional Hawaiian society. But there was special attention paid to chieftains who excelled at the game. The chiefs devoted themselves to sports and contests suited to their rank: surfing, spear throwing, sledding, and the playing of Kōnane. In Kōnane, they contended in skill, and reputation was won by intelligence. One must think carefully and foresee the moves of the opponent. A careless player is quickly trapped. The skilled player watches closely and lays snares for his adversary. The publication of Cook's voyages ignited interest in the islands. European and American explorers, traders, and whalers made regular port as a convenient source of fresh water and supplies. By 1810, the great chieftain Kamehameha used European war tactics, as well as European firearms and cannons, to unite the islands into the Kingdom of Hawaii. Then, on March 30th, 1820, 14 American Protestant missionaries arrived in Hawaii. They were sent by the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, whose stated mission was to evangelize heathen peoples worldwide, encourage moral and social reform consistent with Protestant standards, and establish self-sustaining Christian churches among them. Over the next 4 decades, about 180 additional missionaries were established in Hawaii, significantly changing the culture of the islands. This outside influence, as well as changing island politics, resulted in the rapid erasure of traditional Hawaiian practices, including the playing of Kōnane. However, the game persisted in rural communities and was never really lost. One fascinating aspect of Kōnane is that the game is more than just a pastime, it's a reflection of the Hawaiian mindset. Cultural specialist and Kōnane researcher Kike Kawapua explained the Papa-konane mindset in an episode of the Papamu podcast.
Every culture has a strategy game, and it affects the way they have and do make decisions today. So say, for instance, in the West, chess is dominant. In Asia, Go is dominant. And why that's important is when you see these cultures overlap, whether it's financially or militarily, you'll see they're both playing their own game. In order to interact with another culture, you need to understand the game that they're playing. Kōnane was the game of strategy for the ali'i. And so if you want to understand what why they made the decisions they did, or anything, understanding them in history, you pretty much have to understand their mindset. And literally, the term Papa-konane was what we used to represent our personal mindset, how we plan things and strategize.
If you're interested in Kōnane or Hawaiian culture, you really should check out this entire run of the Papamu podcast. Really interesting and insightful. In 1924, American anthropologist Kenneth Pike Emery joined a 5-year expedition to explore many of the then inaccessible parts of the Pacific. Emery would ultimately spend the next 60 years of his life roaming the Pacific, examining ancient Polynesian settlements, excavating relics, and recording pre-Christian language and rituals. As part of his broader work on Polynesian ethnology, Emery collected stories and folktales from elder natives. Kōnane is present in many of these stories, but never in a pivotal role. It's always, "Then the men passed the time playing Kōnane," or something like that. This demonstrates the popularity of the game. It was played all the time. There is one notable exception, though, in the story when Linoi Kamakahiki first took charge of the government. The story tells of Linoi Kamakahiki, chieftain of Hawaii, and his wife, Kaikilani. They went on a sightseeing tour of the islands but were delayed for 4 months at Molokai due to a severe storm. Kaikilani's secret lover, Heakakoa, missed her so much that he followed the couple and sent Kaikilani a secret message that her husband intercepted while they were playing Kōnane. Kaikilani tried to distract her husband by taunting him about how poorly he was playing the game. Linoi Kamakahiki said, "Say, your lover Heakakoa sends his love, I hear." Kaikilani did not make answer to the question put by her husband, however, but continued in her deception by saying, "This here is one. This is on the run. Steady progress. The top is falling. The blacks are indistinct. The whites have won." At this, Linoi Kamakahiki took up the Kōnane board and struck his wife on the head, inflicting painful wounds, but not severe enough, however, to kill her. Emery documented ancient papamu carved into volcanic rock, as well as recording the rules of Kōnane. He observed that the game was still occasionally played, but that the modern rules, this was the early 1900s, differed from traditional forms of play. He wrote that he learned the traditional rules, including opening procedures and capture mechanics, from an elderly Hawaiian woman who had played the game in her youth. Emery's work coincided with a 20th century resurgence of interest in traditional Hawaiian culture. This included games of the islands, like Kōnane. Since then, the game has only grown in popularity and is currently taught in Hawaiian immersion schools and cultural programs. In fact, the first time I heard of Kōnane was when I got a Google alert for this article. It's about the Kamaku Kōnane Invitational Tournament, the first of its kind in modern Hawaii. As I record this in March of 2026, that happened only 3 weeks ago. As reported in the Honolulu Civil Beat, 8 elite contenders representing multiple Hawaiian islands faced off on 8x11 boards. The finals, though, were played on a historic Papamu Kupana, a 12x15 board which is at least 100 years old. The entire event was recorded. There's a link in the description. It's a great watch, with history of the game, elements of traditional Hawaiian culture, and color commentary on the matches. The final match, a single game, took about an hour. After the final move, Kapena Baptista was the winner. In addition to the fame of being the inaugural winner, he also received a handcrafted replica of the Papamu Kupana that was used for the finals. How cool is that? So, now that we know the rules and history of Kōnane, what strategies might have Baptista used to win? Kōnane is essentially a resource management game, so always remember that victory is the last person who can move, not who captures the most of their opponent's pieces. To that end, try to make moves that leave you with options. A double capture that leaves your piece stranded may be less advantageous than a single capture that leaves you with options in your next move. Play the edges cautiously. While a piece riding the edge can be more protected than a piece in the center, that piece also has fewer movement options, especially as the game progresses and open areas become larger. Forcing your opponent to an edge can leave them with fewer options or even isolate the piece altogether. If possible, create clusters of your opponent's pieces that are separated from the rest of the board. These islands isolate your opponent and leaves them with fewer options. Be aware of long, straight sequences of holes in the board. These ladders can allow for multiple jumps that can help or hinder you depending on their placement and color. Finally, never take a piece or multiple pieces just because you can. Try to end in a protected position that doesn't offer your opponent an immediate counter capture. And that is Kōnane. This is a great game that's hiding a lot of complexity behind a simple set of rules. You should give it a try. As always, I've included all the links, videos, and sources I used in writing the script in the description below. Check it out if you want to go deeper. And if this is the type of content you enjoy, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and even leave a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Gaming Bench. This didn't really fit the history of Kōnane, but I was really taken by the life of anthropologist Kenneth Emery. He was born in Massachusetts in 1897, but moved to Hawaii at the age of 2. He returned to the mainland for his education, eventually earning a PhD from Yale. He returned several times to the islands, and in 1924, at the age of 27, he joined the expedition that would define the rest of his life. This voyage traveled throughout the Pacific on a floating laboratory ship. Emery, realizing that early 20th century missionaries had effectively erased the ancestral gods of Polynesia, made it his life's work to find and document as much pre-Christian culture as he could. He met a French Tahitian woman named Marguerite Thoure in Tahiti. She did not speak English and he did not speak French. Regardless, he was able to convince her not to take the next ship back to France and eventually proposed. To overcome their language barrier, Emery taught himself how to speak Tahitian. They married in a traditional Hawaiian service about a year later. Marguerite came from a wealthy family on her French side and was descended from royalty on her Tahitian side. She worked side by side with Kenneth and was able to open doors that would have been impossible for him alone as an outsider. They were living in Honolulu when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941. Kenneth spent the next several years training U.S. servicemen in jungle survival. By the 1950s, he was considered the world's foremost expert in Polynesian culture. All in all, he spent 6 decades in the Pacific, with Marguerite by his side the entire time. He died in 1992 in Honolulu at the age of 94. Marguerite died 2 years later at the age of 98.